Hello, this is Miho from Canada. How are you guys doing? I hope your mental and physical health are good and fit. So today I'm gonna talk about how you train your brain from being negative to positive. When you are in negative mode for so many years, like here I was, you get in a loop where you train yourself to think in a negative way. So, for instance, you get up in the morning and you, I have to do that. I have to meet that person. Oh, my leg hurts. So, you constantly put your mind or brain into the negative mode. So, you start off your day in a negative mode. So, the rest of the day goes along with your negative mind. And you start looking for enforcement. That's what the brain loves to do. Because you're telling your brain to look for something negative so you could feel, even more, right? And then you start attracting a lot of things that give off a lot of negative feelings. Instead, you could use that energy towards making happy thoughts, happy brain. And actually, this energy amount is equal. You're not using more energy to be negative or positive. You're using pretty much the same equal amount of energy, but you're just looking or pointing in a different way, plus or minus. That's all. So when you consciously adjust to it, you could do it. But when you are in this loop of negative mode, you might not even see the light, or you not even see that there is other side, plus positive side is available. If you're in that deep, it's very tough to see that even there's a possibility. So before you get into that deepness, you will shift your mind to positive. So when you get up, you set your tone for the positive. That's why the morning routine is good. Morning routine, you brush your teeth or you wash your face, you breathe in, you hydrate yourself, and gratitude. So even though you don't feel like doing anything, you just close your eyes and you gratitude. Or even you start stretching, you start brushing your teeth, and you recite your gratitude in your head. And even though you just do 2 minutes, spend 2 minutes in the morning to think of what you're grateful for, which is nothing. 2 minutes pass so quickly. And what it does is set yourself and brain in a positive mode. So the rest of the day will go along with this positive mindset, because your brain will start look for something positive to enforce what you're putting intentions for. So it's a very tricky, that is very sensitive area where you could, either way you could shift. But this is the point. Like when you start doing over and over in a rehearsal, over and over, you could become this positive mind very strong, and the neural paths start to form stronger than, say, the negative mind. So instead of rehearsing the negative thoughts over and over to make it stronger, you do the positive rehearsal over and over, and then over time it gets stronger. And when you do, try to, shift, people tend to go for a big goal, which is important in a big scheme of things. But in order to do it in a day or a week, the pressure of it, it's too much, and you will give up because it's not accessible, it's not possible in your mind. So it's like a glass of water filled with the like a dirty water, and then you put it under the sink, and a faucet will start dripping, one drip at a time. And then the next day, probably nothing changes. A week later, maybe you'll be able to see some difference. But what about 30 days after? What about 60 days after? You probably see the big difference. But you're just doing the effort of one drop at a time. So this is the key, that you will consistently do it towards your goal, which could be a happy mind or anything you wanted to achieve in your life. So you take a big goal. For instance, say you wanted to lose weight 10 kilograms, like 22 pounds. And if you want to do that in a week, it's just too overwhelming, or I don't know, it's just impossible, right? But when you break it down in a little bite size, like, okay, today I will go for a walk for 30 minutes, or I drink water, instead of drinking coffee or juice, pop, I drink water, 1 liter water, because we're made of water pretty much, and it's good to hydrate. For the brain, all the cells in your body, you get stronger and healthier, right? So you break it down to the bite size, and then you start, achieving a little bit at a time. And same for the exercise. If you wanted to run the marathon, 42.2 kilometers in the next week, and if you have no running experience, that's just too, overwhelming. But when you break it down one step at a time, maybe you do 100 meter today. Next day you run 10 minutes. So you break it down, and then you keep at it. And then there is another question, how to keep motivated to do it. I have good intention, but my motivation is gone. And what do you do, right? So I totally hear you, because I've been through that many, many times, still do. But people who motivated to do things, it's not necessarily they love doing things. For instance, for exercise, do they love doing it every single day? Probably not. They rather, sit back in a couch and watch TV and eat junk food, instead of going out in the cold or hot weather and work out or run. But why they do it? Because they have the reason why. They have the purpose why they're doing it. So I have this one example that, this father never took care of his health. So he ate whatever, he drank, smoked heavily. So eventually he had a heart attack, hospitalized, and somehow he was okay, recovered, but he went back to the old, habit he never learned, right? Some people are like that. Then something changed him. Now he looks after his health and he looks great. So what changed him, right? So one day his daughter came up to him and said, "Dad, I want you to walk with me on the wedding ceremony. And I want you to see my grandkids." And that comment really hit him. And now he has the reason why he wants to look after himself. So he does. So this is one of the many, many examples. So this might not work for some people either, but the point is that you need a reason why you're doing it. Not necessarily that you love doing it. That would be great, but it's not many things that you love doing it, but you're motivated to do it. So a lot of people think because you love doing it, you're motivated. That's the myth. A lot of the times you don't want to do it, but you're motivated to do it because you have the reason why. So that's the important part. Like for instance, myself, I run part of it because I feel good. I feel accomplishment. When you do run the marathon, I feel, oh my God, how many people on this earth do this training and do what I just did, right? And then it's a mental strength. I run no matter what, sometimes in the rain, the harsh weather or hot, and some days I don't feel like it, but I put the effort to it just because otherwise I wouldn't be in a good shape to run that whole distance, like about 4 hours or less, around the 4 hours of running. It's a mental strength, so that's why I do it. And also I feel good, and it's a lot of social involved, and I meet a great company. So you have the reasons why, right? And the number 2 is the energy. To keep the energy, because if you want to do something, if you haven't slept for 2 days, you can't really have the focus to do it. Or you ate so much, you become like brain coma and you can't focus, or drunk so much you feel so gross, right? So you need to keep the energy to be motivated. And number 3 is chunk it up to the bite size, so that you don't take the whole thing, like you lose 22 pounds or minus 10 kilo all at once. You break it up to the bite size. So maybe one day you take all the photos of the things you've eaten and you list what you're eating, and that's how you know to adjust your eating habit. Or you drink water instead of coffee, pop, juice. Or you go out and walk, spend 30 minutes walking. Walking is a good exercise too. So those are the things that you keep you going. And of course some days you don't feel like it, which is fine. That's totally normal. But you go back to it because you have the reasons why you want to do it. And along the way you will learn more tricks, more hacks, or better way of doing things. So the practice makes the progress, not perfect. And you just keep adding it, and you will get certain progress and you feel better about yourself. So same thing for happiness mind and the negative mind too. You will see the progress and you start to really bounce up at certain point, and you start grooving your brain much stronger to think in a positive way. So it becomes your traits, becomes your habits. So anyone could do it. So hope this helped, and see you in the next video.